I am the middle child of a family of 3 siblings that grew up in a small town. My father is a hard-working but emotionally inaccessible man who is looking at retiring soon. My mother is a kowtowing housewife from a traditional conservative and religious background. They raised me, and I love them, but they have always considered me a disappointment. My older brother is a golden child. He's 40, married to a completely vapid and quiet woman. They have 2 boys, both into sports, punching, and I think they are complete brats. My brother's job has been mainly selling cars, and he works at a dealership nearby. As an adult, he took on this "I am a mentor to the handicapped" attitude around me, like I am mentally deficient, and should be grateful to his charity towards me. Most of his advice is just torment in another form, a chance to boast about his cars, big house, trophy wife, 2 athletic kids, powerboat, ATVs, and all that. I was the kid who cried too much and made excuses. To be fair, I didn't do that well in school. I was picked on and made fun of because I wasn't a huge redneck jock like most kids in this town. I have asthma, which my parents don't believe is a real thing, suffered depression since I can remember, and was never able to run in a straight line, much less toss around a football. My parents were always expressing their frustration and why I was never as smart or outgoing as my brother. I graduated school with a disappointing 2.5 GPA, used my own money to go to college, but dropped out on the second year. This was always brought up to me in conversation. My little sister was a golden princess. I don't have much to say about her, because I moved out of the house when she became a teenager, so I feel like most of my feelings about her come from an adult point of view. She's not a bad person, just a little spoiled. She engages with the my parents and brother use on me, but it's mostly parroting. I think to avoid being the low one on the totem pole. She married at 19, had a grand wedding, and has 3 kids of her own. The only one I like is her middle child, and I am sure it's projected sympathy. Because she reminds me of what it was like to be the middle child, and she is always getting picked on. I was always an antisocial and awkward nerd. After I dropped out of college, I worked at a gaming and comic book store, which has been out of business for over 7 years, but my parents kept using it in present tense. While there, I met a fellow geek who was looking to start a tech business, and he and I started a support business that grew and grew. Eventually, he sold the company to a bigger company that had to buy me out. They did so with cash and stock, and then their stock did really well. During this time, I invested or created some extra business interests, with a lot of them being lucrative. Without getting too much into it, I am currently worth 7 figures of assets, and currently work as a CTO of another private startup. But I don't live extravagantly, because I don't need to. I drive a 15-year-old Saturn, live in a 2-bedroom house, albeit a nice neighborhood, and all my furniture is secondhand. I'm still single, see a therapist, and I'm busy most of the time. I have to fight alcoholism, which my parents do not support whatsoever, because they think that it's all in my head like the asthma and depression. My parents expect me to be at dinner every Sunday, but they live at the other end of the state, a 90 to 120-minute drive each way, and that takes up most of my Sunday, half of my weekend. But they just assume, as a single mental case, as my brother calls me openly, I don't have anything better to do. For 3 hours I had to endure everything from coerced praise of my brother's latest big sale, to being told advice on how to live my life, grow up, get married, and be an adult for once. If I skip a dinner, I'll hear about it next dinner. My parents haven't said I am a moocher per se, but it's implied, which always puzzles me. In fact, I never have a good answer from my therapist as to why I still kept going. Because any success I have had is belittled or redefined in some negative light. I haven't exactly shared my life with anyone back home. Until very recently, everyone still thought I worked in that gaming store. My life of retail sluggishness was compared to the outgoing and go-better lifestyle of my brother, who had a real job like a grown-up. Games and comics were kid stuff. Anytime I mention technology of any kind, my brother talks over me like I haven't a clue, and I have long since learned to just let him. It's very obvious that he's full of crap, but I feared calling him out because then I'd have to explain how I know that, and then I'd have to explain what I do, and I guess I was a little afraid they'd belittle that, and it would affect everything. I am a hot mess. Last month, however, it changed, because my brother got a hold of some of my personal data from Mom and Dad. He hired some private investigator company to give them a report on me as a person under the pretense it was an employer background check. My guess is that they were going to have an intervention of some sort. But what they found shocked them. They found my net worth. Where I lived was not exactly a room in some shanty, and some other things I wanted to keep private. Because I deal in security, I got alerts of some unauthorized credit pulls, and long story short, I figured out what had happened. I was so angry. I hired that same agency to look up their net worth and assets. Needless to say, my brother was living way outside his means, has several arrests for DWI and public drunken conduct over the years, a few domestic disturbance calls, a file with CPS, but no current charges, scheduled IRS back payments, and has 3 mortgage loans on his house. His credit is in the crapper. My parents were modest and had very little outside of what I already knew. Boring and actually quite sensible in comparison. I didn't even look up my sister. When I came to dinner, I was looking to burn down some bridges. However, what I came into was even more depressing. My parents treated me completely different. They awkwardly fawned over me like I was always the golden child, and this caused my brother to lose his crap halfway through dinner. He tried to compete with me by possibly making up stories about recent commissions and a promotion. And I merely said that these were good things because all of the IRS tax issues, loans, and overextended credit. He denied all of it. I handed him a copy of my report and said it was he who inadvertently suggested that agency when he pulled mine. I have to confess, that felt good for a few minutes of my life. My parents scolded him with dramatic shock, but it was obvious they were in on it too. They had to have given him the social security number for one. It was sickening, and I got no joy over the fight. I felt like I couldn't define the disdain I had for my family until this moment. They were all greedy cowards. The next hour they threw each other under the bus, while I just kept quiet when I could. Sometimes they'd turn on me, and I'd give nonchalant single-word answers, or shrug a lot. My sister, her husband, my brother's wife, and all 5 kids just sat dumbfounded, because nothing like this had ever happened before. Usually, it's pretty quiet and predictable. My mother starts the conversation. My father grunts a lot. My brother boasts a lot. His wife boasts a lot. My brother and sister say what they are up to if they get the chance. And here and there will be some jabs about how I should look up to my brother and be a real man. Now, it was my mom and dad and my brother screaming about all this old news, like crap that happened to the family 20, 30 years ago, and whose fault it really was. Like everything unraveled in an MMA free-for-all. Every stupid thing I felt about them was validated, and I feel like I should feel happy or have a sense of justice. But, frankly, I feel terrible. I don't think I handled it well. I knew they were awful people. What was I hoping to accomplish by dragging my brother's dirty linen out? Now his kids know, for heaven's sake. It ended when my brother, red in the face with fury, blamed me for causing all the problems in this family in one huge summary. You should have never been born. You could tell my mom and dad were trying to shush him in a panic, something I've never seen them do before that night. But they never acknowledged how they treated me before. I got up at some point and told them I was tired of them all, and I wasn't coming back to dinner anymore. Then, my parents accused me of withholding from them. They said some niece or nephew had some ailment I could have fixed and turned a blind eye. I was never aware of these things, and no one asked me for help. Frankly, I think they were making it all up on the spot, but I didn't say that. We thought you worked at a comic book store. No, I stopped correcting you 10 years ago. It hasn't been in business since 2011. Something I mentioned more than once. How these narcissists rewrote history was beyond appalling and straight to embarrassing. I finally just walked out and drove home. I have mixed feelings. I feel kind of violated that now they know how much I am worth, and there is definitely going to be pressure to pay them back because I saw them do this to my brother. I don't want to deal with that. Yes, I am grateful my mom and dad gave me hot food, fresh water, and my own bed to sleep growing up. Yes, we went to amusement parks every summer. And no, I was not beaten by my parents at least. But I was definitely not their favorite, and I feel like any accomplishments I have had as an adult was done in spite of my upbringing. I grew up with them looking the other way when my brother punched me, kicked me, and verbally aided me, even if they think verbal A is not a real thing. I feel like I'm just done. I know they are my family, but I'm just so done with them all. I don't want them to die or anything. I just want to completely cut ties with them and close that chapter in my life. Of course, if I get a girlfriend and want to get married and have kids, how am I going to approach that? Go no contact. The only reason they wanted you around before was so they could belittle you to make themselves feel good. And the only reason they want you around now is to get some of your money. Your family is no reflection of you. Frankly, they all suck. You are not a loser. You actually sound like a pretty neat person who got the raw end of the deal when it came to family. Block their numbers and go live your life without them. I think you did an outstanding job. Lower your contact with your family as much as you like. You know they are only after your money, so you don't have to have anything to do with them on anything but your own terms. Keep talking to your therapist to help you move into a life without them dragging you down. Go no contact, absolutely. If you can, pack your things and move to a new city for a fresh start. Regarding dating, lots of people are estranged from their families. It can be weird to explain to a potential partner, especially if their familial ties are strong. But you certainly are not the first person who has had to take drastic steps like this. You will build a new family when the time is right. In the meantime, there are a couple things I think you should do if you haven't already. Put a security freeze on your credit accounts. If your brother used resources from the car dealership to pull this info on you, you may want to consider telling them. I don't think they would be pleased to hear they were complicit in fraud. Also, get a lawyer. You are young, but catastrophes happen, and currently, your parents are next of kin by default and will inherit everything. Maybe you don't care about that, but if you would prefer to see your assets go to someone else, get it in writing as soon as possible. Lastly, find a good counselor. You may experience some grief in the coming months, and it will be helpful to talk through it with a professional. Hello, Internet people. I've never posted here, so please be kind. Cast. Me. Daisy, soon-to-be ex-wife, Peach, daughter, and Mario, son. I'm going through a tough separation, and I'm preparing for a brutal divorce. Daisy is willing to fight me tooth and nail on literally everything. She is against our child support agreement, alimony agreement, estate agreement, and mostly our custody agreement. Me and Daisy are splitting because she found her true self earlier this year and came out as bi. She wanted an open marriage. I said no. So she slept with my patrol partner. I'm a cop. It really sucked because my partner is one of my best friends. We separated and I took some time off to get away from my partner. At first, when I was home, Daisy begged to stay together, but when it was clear I wasn't changing my mind, she changed plans. She became vindictive and evil. She started poisoning Peach by telling her that I was kicking out Mommy because Daddy hates his family. She's staying at her mom's currently, and when the kids visit, they spend time with her and the AP. AP spoils them with material goods, and when they come home, they ask why I hate AP, or that AP loves us more than you. This is just playing dirty, but Daisy recently took it too far. The kids were going to stay with her for 2 weeks, with me visiting on the weekends, because I was preparing for a homicide detective promotion, and there are a certain amount of hours required. I packed Mario a hefty bag for the next couple of weeks, and handed it to him, when he said, "Are you sending us away because you hate us like Mommy?" with tears in his eyes. I just held him, and told him no, but I think it's too late for that. I dropped him off, and I saw them this past weekend. They didn't even want to talk to me. I begged to see them, but they didn't even want to see me. I had to wait until today to see my kids again. I picked them up and they looked sad. I talked to them today and I can tell that Peach is really struggling. She still loves me, but Daisy won't let her. She feels like she's not allowed to love me, and it's really hurting her. I can't let my princess go through this anymore. They are being actively hurt by this divorce, and now I'm questioning it. Should I continue with the divorce? Is there a way to proceed and spare my kids? Should I suck it up and stay? You need to tell all of this to your divorce attorney immediately. This is parental alienation, and a judge will almost certainly order a stop to it, but that order will be hard to enforce, so you need to jump on this ASAP and then stay on it. Daisy is a very bad person. Document everything, and definitely divorce her. Things will not get better if you stay. They will get worse. Dude, this is parental alienation, and a big reason why my friend got custody of his kid. Because his ex-wife was doing this crap. Document and get your attorney on this pronto. Also, therapy for the kiddos. Your ex is a horrible human. Do not let her have your kids anymore. Tell your lawyer what she is doing and let him know that your kids are not seeing their mother without supervision. I would also call CPS and let them know what your ex is doing to your kids. This is A, and for the love of your kids, do not get back with her.